He paid for this entire event, and we laughed at him? The room froze. Champagne flutes trembled mid-air. That one sentence shattered 5 years of assumptions. 5 years of silence. 5 years of thinking Derrick Owens would never amount to anything. But rewind just 24 hours earlier, and none of them saw it coming. The invitation arrived folded, plain white, almost like a joke. Granville Prep Reunion, Class of 2019. Addressed to Derrick Owens. A name they used to whisper like a curse. That weird kid. The one from the wrong side of town. The black kid who read too much and spoke too little. But Derrick wasn't that kid anymore. He was the quiet storm they all forgot about, until he walked in. This is not just a reunion. It's a revelation. This is a black story that flips the narrative. You want to talk about glow-ups? This one doesn't sparkle. It scorches. Because Derrick Owens, once the outcast mocked for thrift store shoes and hand-me-down hoodies, now owns the very platform they're standing on. Literally. And yet, no one saw it. No designer suit. No flashy entrance. Just Derrick, calm as ever, stepping into the Hilton Savannah riverfront like it was just another Wednesday night. The air was thick with arrogance, fake laughs, and people chasing status they never earned. They thought he'd be a joke. But Derrick was the punchline they couldn't survive. And before we dive any deeper, if stories like these move you, stories of grit, of quiet revenge, of justice without shouting, hit that subscribe button. We've got more coming that'll shake the surface. Now, breathe deep. Because what happens next isn't just about one man. It's about every person who's ever been counted out, ever been underestimated, ever been laughed at, and turned that laugh into legacy. So here's how it started. Derrick. The hoodie. The smirks. The silence. And the $100 million secret no one in that room was ready to face. The lobby smelled like citrus and money. Polished marble floors reflected the low hum of the Hilton Savannah riverfront's chandeliers, each casting a warm golden glow over the room like everything here was trying too hard to look effortless. Reunion banners hung perfectly straight, as if wrinkle-free linen could erase everything that had ever gone wrong in high school. A photo booth buzzed in the corner, spitting out glossy prints where forced smiles held tighter than Spanx. They came dressed to impress, but it wasn't about celebration. It was about comparison. Who had aged best? Who drove what? Who married rich? And most of all, who failed? The name tags sat in alphabetical order on a velvet-draped table, neatly laminated with thick black print. Derrick sat untouched, right between Olsen and Patterson. It read Derrick Owens in bold font, clipped to a card no one thought would be claimed. At the center of it all stood Travis Wolfe, the self-declared host. Former basketball captain. Homecoming king. Still wearing his varsity ego like it fit. He strutted from table to table, tossing air kisses, hugging people he used to cheat off in chemistry. The kind of guy who introduced himself with his job title first. You know, head of expansion at Eastbridge Capital, he said to 3 people in less than 5 minutes. Near the open bar, Brianna Hill leaned into her 5th mimosa, filming a story for her beauty blog with shaky lighting and way too much filter. Her dress was designer, but her confidence wore thin. She scanned the room like she was still in the cafeteria, ranking people. And that's when Derrick stepped in. No fanfare. No spotlight. Just one man, in a charcoal gray crewneck, tailored jeans, and boots worn soft by time. The doors didn't swing open dramatically. They just creaked. Heads turned. Not all at once. More like a wave rolling across the shore. Some smiled. Most didn't. One girl actually whispered, "Oh wow, he showed up." He moved slowly, calmly, eyes scanning the crowd like a man who remembered everything and owed no one an explanation. The party looked polished on the outside. But underneath the hors d'oeuvres and hollow compliments, it was cracking. They didn't know it yet, but the real reunion was about to begin. The room buzzed with fake warmth and backhanded compliments. Someone toasted to success in strange places, and another laughed a little too loud. It wasn't long before Travis grabbed the mic, his voice booming over the speakers like he was still announcing basketball games at pep rallies. All right, he said, clapping his hands. Before we all get too tipsy to remember high school, let's play a little game. It's cold then and now. Laughter scattered like marbles on tile. People turned toward the stage, glasses raised, half expecting to be roasted, half hoping they would be. The projector flickered to life behind him, revealing side-by-side photos, senior portraits next to present-day snapshots. A few slides brought real applause: lawyers, doctors, a fashion startup that just got into Target. Every slide was a comparison. Every slide was a silent scoreboard. And then came the moment they had planned for. The screen clicked forward to an empty frame. No photo. Just a blank gray box with the words, "Image not available," typed in the center. Underneath, a caption read, "Derrick Owens, still loading." The room erupted. A few people gasped. Most just laughed. Loud, frinny, unfiltered. The kind of laugh that doesn't just echo, it stings. Even Brianna filmed the screen with a smirk, whispering, "That's cold," to her camera. Travis leaned into the mic again. Guess some people don't change, huh? Still buffering after all these years. More laughter. Derrick didn't flinch. He sat at a table near the back, hands folded calmly on the white tablecloth. His jaw was relaxed. His eyes steady. Not a hint of emotion cracked his expression. But something in the room shifted. A few glances exchanged. Some chuckles turned hesitant. Not everyone was laughing anymore. Because it wasn't just a joke, it was a setup. A public attempt to reduce a man to nothing more than silence. The same silence they once mistook for weakness. Travis moved on quickly, shifting slides to someone else, someone safer. But the tension had already started to coil in the corners. Derrick stayed seated, like a man watching a storm he already prepared for. He didn't need to speak. Because sometimes, the loudest response is choosing not to respond at all. The laughter faded, but the ripple effect lingered. Like smoke that doesn't leave the room, even after the fire dies. People started moving again, but slower now. Their eyes drifted toward Derrick from time to time, subtle glances over drink rims or behind shallow smiles. No one approached him. No one dared. Instead, they whispered. Near the dessert table, two guys huddled over a slice of cheesecake, speaking just low enough to pretend it was private. "I heard he's still living with his aunt. Same house from back then. No car. No nothing. Dude, I swear someone saw him working at a corner store near Jefferson Avenue. Bagging groceries." Behind them, a girl nodded like she knew something they didn't. "He was always weird. Probably just crashed here to show face. You know, make it seem like he's doing okay." The stories traveled faster than the music. And none of them came from Derrick. That was the problem. Where there is no story, people write their own. And they never write it kindly. At the bar, Zachary Kim, once the supposed tech genius of the class, leaned in toward Travis, sipping something dark and expensive looking. "You really brought him just for this?" Travis grinned, not bothering to hide it. "It's poetic. Full circle. Some people shine. Some people fade." He just stalled. Zach raised a brow. "Kinda harsh, no?" Travis shrugged. Man, if he wanted respect, he should have earned it. A beat passed. Then Travis added with a chuckle. "Besides, look at him. Still rockin' thrift vibes like it's a statement." Somewhere across the room, Brianna filmed another selfie video for her followers. Granville glow-ups and, the opposite, she said with a sly smile, tilting her phone just enough to catch Derrick in the background. "We're all grown now, but some people, they stay frozen." She posted it with a filter. No context. Just a caption that read, "Some stories don't upload." It got a dozen likes before she even set her phone down. But Derrick? Still quiet. Still composed. He sipped water from his glass like nothing touched him. Not the laughter. Not the whispers. Not the digital mockery happening right behind his back. Because Derrick knew. People only whisper when they're afraid of being wrong out loud. And the night was far from over. The music faded into something softer, something jazzy and forgettable. It played like background noise meant to fill the space between truth and performance. But it couldn't drown out the tension. Derrick sat still, glass of water in hand, tracing the condensation ring on the table with one finger. His breathing never changed. Not faster, not slower. He was present, but not engaged. Observing. Like a man watching the room from the outside in. The thing is, silence can be deafening when it belongs to someone who knows more than he lets on. Across the ballroom, Travis scanned the crowd, searching for someone to validate him. Someone to match his energy. But he was starting to notice that even the loudest people weren't laughing anymore. The show was beginning to turn into a slow unraveling. Then came the envelope. A hotel staff member in a crisp white jacket approached Travis with a discreet nod and handed him a slim, gold-trimmed envelope. It had the Hilton logo in one corner and a card tucked inside. Travis opened it without thinking. He read the short message once. Then again. His face didn't change, but his posture did. Slightly stiffer. Jaw tighter. He walked toward the mic like nothing was wrong. "Hey folks," he said, clearing his throat, trying to keep the usual swagger. "Before we jump into dinner, a quick shout out to the person who made this whole evening possible." People clapped lazily, distracted by their own conversations. Travis held up the card, squinting for effect. Tonight's event is brought to you by a very generous, anonymous sponsor. He smiled wide, but it didn't reach his eyes. They wanted no spotlight. Just a good time for all of us. So hey, round of applause. More polite claps. A few looked around, curious. But no one asked questions. Derrick glanced at his napkin. Folded it. Unfolded it. Smoothed the crease like he had all the time in the world. He didn't move. He didn't blink more than usual. But in that moment, he held the entire room in the palm of his hand. Because he didn't have to say a word. The battle had already begun. And they were playing checkers. While he was already 10 moves into chess. The hum of voices returned, soft and unsettled, like a crowd waiting for something but unsure what it was. Glasses clinked. Plaints shifted. A nervous kind of rhythm floated through the air. And then Derrick stood. No one noticed at first. He didn't slam a hand on the table. Didn't raise his voice. He simply pushed back his chair, the soft scrape of wood on tile echoing louder than the music. Eyes turned. Travis froze mid-sip. Derrick walked toward the stage, each step measured, not hesitant, not proud. Just certain. Like he had already rehearsed this moment 100 times. The spotlight caught the edge of his face, and for the first time that night, people saw him. Not the hoodie. Not the quiet. Not the assumptions. Just him. When he reached the mic, Travis made a move to speak, but Derrick held up a hand. Calm. Unshaking. The room responded before Travis could. Silence. Derrick adjusted the mic with care, then looked out across the crowd. "I want to thank you all," he began, his voice steady but soft. "For coming tonight. For showing up. For being exactly who I remembered." A few chuckles escaped, but they didn't last long. "And I want to thank our anonymous sponsor," he added, pausing. "Which, if we're being honest, is not that anonymous." He reached into his pocket, pulled out his phone, and with one tap, the projector behind him shifted. Gone were the reunion slides. Now came headlines. Forbes. NovaWare AI raises $80 million in Series B. Meet Derrick Owens, the quiet force behind the future of medical AI. TechCrunch. Fast Company. Business Insider. Each slide carried his name, his company, his word. The room inhaled all at once. One more slide clicked into place. A clean white background. Bold, black letters. Estimated net worth, $108 million. No one laughed now. Travis took a step back, his face draining color faster than his wine glass. Brianna stared at her phone, suddenly questioning every post she had made that night. Derrick didn't gloat. He didn't smirk. He just stood there, allowing the weight of truth to settle in every corner of the room. "This isn't revenge," he said, his voice even lower now. "It's just clarity. And maybe a little closure." He stepped back from the mic, let the silence applaud, and walked down from the stage. Not above them, but beyond them. It was the kind of silence you don't plan for. Not the respectful kind. Not the awkward kind. This silence was heavy, dense. Like the air itself had stopped moving, unsure what to do next. Some stared at the projector screen as if the numbers might disappear if they looked long enough. Others dropped their gaze to their glasses, swirling ice they didn't even want to drink anymore. Derrick had taken his seat again, calm as ever. Still not smiling. Still not bragging. Just letting the truth hang in the space they once filled with doubt. Travis stood off to the side, clutching his cue cards like they could rescue him. His grin was gone, replaced by the flat stare of someone realizing the punchline had flipped. He looked at the mic, then at Derrick, then back at the crowd. But there was nothing left to say. Nothing that could undo what just happened. Near the back, Brianna's fingers flew across her phone, probably trying to delete a post before it gained traction. The same fingers that once tapped record to humiliate him now scrambled to cover the evidence. Zachary didn't speak. He just checked Google under the table, typing fast. His jaw tightened when every result came back real. No rumor. No PR stunt. Just fact. For years, they had filled in Derrick's story with their own assumptions. Now, the real version had crashed through the front door, and it did not ask for permission. The whispers returned, but quieter now. Regretful. Unsure. Was he always this smart? I thought he moved away. Did we ever actually talk to him? A girl near the bar muttered. He was always quiet, but not stupid. A guy answered. Now. We were. Derrick sat quietly, his presence louder than any speech. He wasn't trying to prove anything anymore. He didn't need their validation, or their attention, because the silence wasn't just theirs now. It belonged to him. The room they built to celebrate themselves had become a mirror, and in that mirror, they saw exactly who they were, and exactly who they were not. And Derrick? He was never missing. He was just never looking for applause. Derrick stood again, not because he needed to, but because the moment demanded it. This time, he didn't walk to the stage. He didn't need a microphone or a spotlight. He simply turned to face the room, hands in his pockets, voice firm but quiet. It was the kind of voice that didn't shout to be heard, but made people lean in to listen. You know, he began, eyes scanning the crowd. What you called weird was vision. A beat passed. No one moved. What you dismissed as silence was discipline. More silence. Deeper this time. What you laughed at, that was resilience. He didn't blink. Didn't flinch. Just spoke with the calm of someone who had nothing left to prove. I wasn't quiet because I had nothing to say, he continued. I was quiet because I was listening. Watching. Building. A few people shifted in their chairs, the weight of his words sinking in. You mocked me for staying in my lane. You never realized I was paving it. He looked toward Travis, who sat stone still now, cue cards abandoned, his confidence nowhere to be found. Some of you wore popularity like armor. You thought it protected you from ever needing to grow. And some of you, he said, his voice softening slightly, never stopped being teenagers. Just taller now. Louder. Still scared of being invisible. A glass clinked somewhere, but no one laughed. I don't hate any of you, Derrick said. I'm not here for payback. He paused, then nodded. I'm here because the truth doesn't always need revenge. Sometimes, it just needs to be seen. A hush followed that line. The kind of hush that doesn't fade with music or drinks or small talk. The difference between us, he said, isn't luck. It's what we chose to believe, about ourselves, and about each other. He looked around once more. Then, with a calm finality, turned back to his table and sat. And just like that, the moment passed. But it didn't leave. Because the message wasn't loud. It was clear. And sometimes, clarity cuts deeper than any insult ever could. You could feel the air shift. It wasn't dramatic. No one cried. No one stood up and clapped. But something moved under the surface. Quiet, like the current beneath a calm lake. It started with a glance. Then, another. People who had avoided Derrick's gaze now looked at him, but not with mockery. Not even with curiosity. It was something else. It was regret. A tall guy near the wall, Jason, or maybe James, Derrick didn't remember, made his way over slowly. He wasn't smiling, just holding a glass of untouched wine. Hey, he said awkwardly, scratching the back of his neck. I don't know if you remember me. I think we had history class together. Sophomore year. Derrick nodded once. Not cold. Not overly friendly. I just wanted to say, back then, I didn't really get you, the guy continued. I thought quiet meant weak. But, yeah. Turns out, I didn't know much of anything. He offered his hand. Derrick shook it. Brief. Son. No bitterness. Others followed. A few people stopped by his table, not to ask questions, but to apologize, quietly, in their own way. Some with words. Some with just a nod. Even Brianna, makeup no longer perfect under the ballroom lights, walked past with a muttered, "Respect," before disappearing into the hallway. Zachary hovered nearby, phone in hand, clearly wrestling with something. You know, he finally said, I used to think being first was everything. Winning fast. Launching big. But watching you tonight, I realized patience might be the real flex. Derrick gave him a look. Level, measured. Speed fades. Substance doesn't. Zach smiled, not forced this time. Yeah, you were right. The room hadn't changed physically. Same lights. Same music. Same decor. But the energy, it was different. It was no longer about who wore what, or who drove what. Now, it was about who listened, and who finally saw clearly. The whispers were gone. Not because they stopped talking, but because no one needed to anymore. Derrick's presence had already done the talking. And sometimes, it takes one quiet truth to ripple through a lifetime of noise. Not everyone approached him. Some stayed in their corners, unsure how to face what they had ignored for years. But a few came with no hidden agenda, no performance, just truth. That's when she walked up. Tanya Jenkins. Back in high school, she'd been the only other person of color in their graduating class. Soft-spoken, smart, always with a journal tucked under her arm. She was kind, but never loud enough to be remembered by the crowd. She stood across the table now, not trying to interrupt, just waiting patiently. Derrick looked up and met her eyes. "Tea," she said, with a quiet smile. "Still folding napkins like origami?" Derrick blinked, and for the first time that night, let out a soft laugh. "You noticed that?" "I always did," Tanya said. "You used to do it during lunch. Like clockwork. I think you were building little shields without even knowing it." He nodded. "Maybe I was." They stood in the calm between people still processing and those trying to pretend they weren't. "I saw the headlines," she added. "A while ago. I knew it was you. But I didn't reach out." "Why not?" he asked gently. "Because I didn't want to come back into your life just because you made it," she said. That wouldn't have been real. That stopped him. No one had said it like that. No pretense. No agenda. "Thank you," he said, meaning it. They talked for a few more minutes, about life, about family, about how some things change and others never do. She worked in community health now, still writing in her spare time. Still low-key. Still genuine. Before leaving, she handed him a folded piece of paper. "Old habit," she said. "Figured I'd write instead of text." He tucked it into his pocket without opening it. Some connections don't need a crowd. They just need eye contact, memory, respect. And in a room full of echoes and rehearsed regrets, Tanya reminded Derrick of something he almost forgot. Not everyone missed who he was. Some people just waited until the noise cleared, so they could meet him again for real. Derrick could have left. He could have walked out after dropping the mic, let his silence echo through every hallway of that ballroom, and disappeared into the night with the final word. But he didn't. Because the moment wasn't just about him. It was bigger than one reunion. Bigger than payback. It was about taking control of a narrative that was never meant for him, and rewriting it on his own terms. So he stood once more. No announcement. No music. Just presence. People turned again. This time, not with mockery, but with anticipation. He raised his voice slightly. Just enough to carry. The crowd quieted, instinctively. "I want to offer something," Derrick said. "To anyone in this room who's willing to do more than apologize." A pause. "I started a mentoring initiative this year. Free. For first-gen college students, for young founders who have more ambition than resources. We partner them with real leaders, people who've walked through the fire." He looked around the room, making eye contact with the same people who had once dismissed him. "If any of you want to give back, to actually use what you've learned since high school, not just brag about it, I'll leave a sign-up sheet at the door." Whispers passed through the crowd, but not the cruel kind. This time, it was curiosity, consideration. Some nodded. Some lowered their heads, realizing for the first time that real power doesn't make noise, it creates space. He turned slightly, facing the stage where they had tried to erase him. "This place," he said, "this night, it was meant to measure who made it. But that measurement was flawed from the start. Because it only asked who had something to show." He smiled, soft but solid. "Next time, ask who has something to give." With that, he stepped back, not because he needed the exit, but because he had just created one for everyone else. A door out of the performance. A way forward that wasn't built on shame or ego. He didn't claim the stage for revenge. He claimed it to return something better. A truth they didn't expect. And a choice they didn't know they had until now. The ballroom had emptied slowly. Like no one wanted to be the first to leave, or the last to pretend. Derrick stayed for a while, not out of obligation, but because closure doesn't always come with applause. Sometimes it comes with stillness, with quiet steps, with the way a space finally lets go of who it used to be. Outside, the night air was cool, crisp. The kind of air that makes you breathe deeper, like the world is resetting itself. He walked alone, no entourage, no one following for selfies. Just a man, hoodie on, shoulders back, finally done carrying weight that was never his to begin with. And in that moment, one thing was clear. Sometimes, the most powerful story you can tell is the one they never saw coming. Because this wasn't about revenge. It was about remembering who you are when everyone else forgets. It was about letting your life speak for itself. So if you're watching this, and you've ever been the quiet one in the room, the overlooked one, the underestimated one, the one they laughed at, dismissed, talked over, or tried to define without ever really knowing you, this story is for you. You don't have to prove them wrong with noise. You can do it with presence, with patience, with purpose. You can build quietly, grow quietly, and let your success walk into the room long before you ever need to explain it. Because real power doesn't scream. It just shows up. And when it does, no one forgets it. So let me ask you something. If you were Derrick that night, If you had the chance to reveal who you became after years of being counted out, would you stay silent? Or would you let the truth speak louder than the people ever did? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if this black story resonated with you, if it made you feel seen, do us a favor. Hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel. Share this with someone who needs to be reminded that their story isn't over. It's just beginning.